Hi, hello, how are you? If it looks like I'm not moving, it's because I'm not. It's late and I'm not about to bust out lights and equipment. These videos take forever to edit. I was literally doing this for hours and hours. So I learned a lot about putting this together. We pulled it together in just a week. Next time, we'd like to do it before early ballots and give our neighbors more notice. Anyway, please forgive some minor technical difficulties early in the video. This was a first for me, and I've learned a thing or two about how I can improve quality. So thanks for your patience and enjoy.
Hello, I'm Steve McNeely. I'm running for mayor of Tombstone. I've been a resident here 9 years, been coming here for 40 years. One of the main things I want to try to work on is transparency. I've been going to council meetings for the last 3 years. Very few people come. They don't come because they don't get any answers and they can't ask questions. So to me, we need much more transparency to get our citizens involved so they really take an interest in our community. And while going to those meetings, what I found out, I've got all the payables for the last 3 years, just about every month. I might have missed a month or two, but I don't think so. And I've analyzed the payables. I've analyzed the budgets for the last 3 years. There's just areas that I think could be improved on. And the big thing I found out, especially with the budget, is 80% of our revenue comes from the businesses, in tourism, and sales tax. Too many citizens in Tombstone think, well, I don't care what happens uptown. And that may be true. They don't have an interest in going uptown, but they got to realize that the revenue for our city comes from the businesses that collect the sales tax, 80%. So that's very important, and that supports our water, sewer, infrastructure, fire department, water. Food bank, all that stuff comes from the sales tax revenue. So we need to increase tourism. I've been coming here for over 40 years, about 40 years, 42 years, and over that time, the movie was great 30 years ago, but El Dorado used to be 3 times what it is now. And every year it's kind of dwindled. And so we've got a problem. We got to market our city. We got to market the history. People want to come here. And one of the things I've done is add a zip line, which I think is going to be great for families. We had a whole group from Phoenix here yesterday, a softball team. So, but those kind of things that we're paying sales tax, so that generates revenue. And so we do need things to keep our city going. It's going to help the citizens realize that we got to realize that infrastructure is important. We need roads, we need water, sewer, all that to be maintained. So the revenue is the important thing. So I think I pretty much covered it.
I'm Lillian, Lily for short, Ritz, and I live in Ward 4, and I've decided to run for Ward 4 City Council. I moved here 18 years ago from the big city of Chicago. I am a school teacher by training. I worked in Chicago for 10 years, and I worked in that wide professional development program that provided training to all of the teachers in the state of Arizona. That was over $1 million project that I had to manage. After that project went to the wayside, my next career was becoming an entrepreneur business owner in Tombstone, and I own Lily's Tombstone Memories. And if you can tell from the history of that, we started frozen yogurt. As the machines were dying down, you get a scenario where it's time to either replace, repair, or maybe go out of business. And timing fell into play that we were able to purchase Annie's Place. We did a lot of remodeling, bringing it up into a modern age, I guess you could say. And every penny we've made on there has been put right back into, as Steve put it, the taxes for the city, as well as the business to make it, I won't say beautify it, but modernize it, make it presentable so that people coming into town want to see what, go into the store and see what it's like. What I wanted to also acknowledge is the reason I decided to run for city council is so many years I've been here and I hear my neighbors complain, I complain, and it came to a point in time where you can't keep complaining unless you're going to get in and do something. So I've decided to run for that reason. And one of the goals that I'll have during my 2-year term is to see that we begin redistricting. For those of you who aren't aware, Tombstone is divided into 4 wards, and Ward 4 is twice as big as all the other wards. So I'd like to, for all the years we've lived here, there was talk about redistricting, and then it didn't seem to be a topic of discussion for the last couple of years, so I brought it back to life, and I'd like to see us work on that.
I do think the redistricting makes a lot of sense, and that's can't be that complicated. It's a shame it hasn't been done in so long. But my name is Matt Falk. Grew up on a farm in Ohio, but I loved the West since I was a little kid. Just always loved the West, still do. When I first left Ohio, I went to Florida. Spent time in law enforcement in Florida, but eventually got out here. The first time I came to visit Tombstone was 2002, but then I moved there.
Speak louder, please.
Sure.
Thank you.
The first time I visited Tombstone was 2002. I finally moved to Arizona in 2015 originally, and then left for a little while, came back. Last year I was down here doing deliveries for an existing business I had in Phoenix. I sell wine and whiskey barrels and make furniture and decor out of them. I was down there doing deliveries, saw the building for sale up on Fremont that was in kind of decay, I guess, and then sat abandoned or empty anyhow for years, and purchased the building, and I've been working on it ever since. I think it's important to preserve history, and that was a goal that I had for quite a while, was to find an old building like that to work on. And the one thing I'd like to see at city council meetings, and something I'd like to see more discussion and more, I don't want to say it's not transparent, but there's very little discussion and very little information about how decisions are brought about or decided on. It's hard to say if, recent decisions like spending money on advertising with a TV station in Tucson, is that a good decision? It doesn't seem like it, but there's really no information to support that it is a good decision. So I'd like to see more discussion and information for the public and the council themselves.
My name is Lisa Penny. I'm running for Ward 1. I am a resident here in Tombstone. I have been for 2 years. I have another residence in it that is in between Arabaka and Amato, a horse ranch. That is where Michael is at right now. I own a very successful business that I have built from ground zero. It was a business that was ran into the ground by the previous owner. It was handed to me and said, here, do whatever you want with it. I have currently hold 10 different contracts around the state, county, cities for electronic monitoring of all offenders for felonies, misdemeanors, pretrial, bonds. Turned out to be very lucrative, which is great. My history is, my first degree is in business accounting, so I'm very familiar with all of that. I have done numerous jobs as far as being a paralegal. I retired from law enforcement. I worked for another sheriff's department in a different state. I have 6 kids, 20 grandchildren, so I run a pretty tight ship. And of course, I'm the captain of the Rangers here in Tombstone. Have been for 3 years. So that's a little bit of my background. As far as things that I would like to see for the city of Tombstone, of course, the city council's job, I think some people have lost sight of what it is. We're supposed to oversee and help direct the social, the economical, which includes all of the tourism, the business owners, and mostly the residents of the city. I live in Ward 1. I've been around to speak to quite a few people in my ward, and boy, there's a lot of complaints. And it's something that I would like to help fix. I would like to help find solutions for, in working with everybody in Ward 1 that resides in Ward 1. No matter who is elected as mayor, no offense, just saying, and if I am put in to Ward 1, I will work well with them. I have no issues working well with everybody. If there's a problem, we'll find a solution. We just all need to work together, bring the merchants together. So all this fighting, it stops. We try and bring events into the town to try and boost up our businesses and everyone's level of living, their conditions of living. So that's pretty much what I'm about. to grow slowly, no doubt. If you grow too quickly, we're going to fail. So we have to learn from past mistakes. We have to preserve our history, maintain our history, promote our history of this town. But we also need to bring in new, fresh blood. I'm not saying everyone flood in at once. We will fail. So we need to come up with a long-term plan, which I haven't seen one. Not saying one does not exist, but a long-term plan for this community so we have goals to reach. If we don't have goals, we're going to fail.
I agree with Lisa, and I'm also for the idea of planning, and I understand exactly the debate that between the two of them because of the fact that I have it with plenty of people as well. I listen to one person and they really want growth and expansion and more businesses, more homes in Tombstone, and then I talk to another person and they go, no, I don't want any more growth. It's getting too big as it is, let's keep it small. So I think along with the idea of the city actually planning a development of Tombstone from what it is to what it could be, it needs to have community involvement. We need just as many people who are opposed to growth as we need who are for growth. When they work together, they get growth at the perfect point where both are happy. It might not be as big as what one wanted, and it might not be as little as what the other wanted. But if they're both at the table having the discussion, then we can make a happy medium for both of them, and then they go out into the community and they spread that happiness. I don't mean to be Susie Pollyanna, but I think most of the problems that we see happen within our town is that people aren't made aware or informed, and we just need to make sure everybody's involved in that planning before it happens or while it's happening.
I agree. One thing we need to work on is our image. I mean, we got buildings, for example, the Bella Union and Adobe have been sitting for 15 years empty. Looks bad when you come into town. And that isn't really growth. That's just taking care of what we have. And our historical district needs to look better than it does. And that can be done. There can be plans to get that accomplished. And, that business the city attorney, we should be able to work something out to get that building back open again. And it will be under my mayor.
It's something that really has to be done. We have no idea how many people that we're scaring away from bringing any investment or business to town. As I visited here over the years, I always paid attention to what was open, what was closed, what had changed hands. And even when I moved down here and purchased the building, I thought, and even other people I knew, and a buddy of mine that was with me when I was visiting, we walked around, he said, "You sure you want to come down there? It looks like the town is dying again." And I said, it kind of looks that way in a lot of places, and it doesn't have to. There's easy and cheap things that can be done to keep up the appearances of vacant buildings. It's not possible to keep every, especially commercial building, occupied all the time. It's not possible anywhere. But you can improve the appearances of those vacancies and make things look more presentable so that somebody that's thinking about moving here and buying a house or building a business isn't afraid that they're throwing their money down the drain.
I'm going to follow with the agreement with my counterparts, and I have to just acknowledge that I've been making phone calls to the people in my ward asking how I can earn their vote. And one of the most common responses is, stop people from dumping junk, and can you clean up the community? I follow up with the question to find out, is this private or public land, so that we can figure out how to address those. I've done some research and checking with other towns and how they handle scenarios like that. And I have already made a promise to someone who's not even in my ward that I would definitely ensure that if I am elected, one of the first things I will be asking for is a review of the ordinances to find out how they are specifically stipulated and determine our ability to enforce or rewrite the ordinances. was from a new resident who worked for Public Works in their previous position. And their community puts out dumpsters at certain parts within the community. And I know we all have a free dump day, I'm not negating that, but I will tell you that I have no means of transporting it unless I borrow a truck from a friend. My thought was we see how that would impact us financially and if that's something the city can do. And then maybe ask community members who do have vehicles if they could help the elderly who have no vehicle or the young who have no vehicle to get that stuff to the dumpster. But then, there could be a cleanup day where that's all done, or a cleanup week where that's all done. So the people who have the inability, we can find volunteers in the community to help with that.
I think one thing that I want to do is we have volunteers that want to work in this city. I've talked to a lot of people, said I would be happy to volunteer. One thing we need to do is recognize these people. I mean, we got people that do so much volunteer in the city and they're never recognized. We should have at least an annual or twice a year, a nice dinner or whatever, recognize these people. And we would get a lot more volunteers, ask for them and recognize them for what they do. Because that's an inexpensive way to do it and take pride in your city. And I mean, most cities I've been in, they have that. A lot of historical areas will have in their historical area, they got ordinances where if a person comes in and buys a building, they got so many months or whatever to get that building operable. And we have people come and, like you say, buy a building and sit on it. I mean, there's a couple on right on Allen Street that have been sitting empty for years, and that's the fronts. Even the front isn't fixed up, So I mean, it would probably have to be a vote of the public, but I think that's time we do that. Is put an ordinance in where these buildings in our historical district are not maintained, there's going to be a fine. And have them operable, because they should be part of the community. If they're going to buy it and just sit on it, that doesn't do our community any good at all.
So why hasn't someone gone to code enforcement and said, hey, like Ken said,
That's
hey,
what we truly need.
bring it up to code.
Well, it needs to be addressed, let's put it that way. And I think it'll have to be a vote of the whole community, but if the vote is to put an enforcement in where you can put some teeth in it, that's what we got to do.
First, we have to figure out what all of the actual ordinances clearly state. And just from my few years of being here and listening to each election, there are ordinances that contradict other ordinances, right? And there are ordinances that we are not enforcing at all. And that goes back to what I was saying earlier. If the ordinance says you're not allowed to dump, you're not allowed to have your appliances sitting in your driveway for X amount, that's the plan, is to review the ordinance. If the ordinance say this, then we need to enforce them. If they don't, then they need to be rewritten to make sure they say what we need to say.
I will tell everybody here right now, I am not a politician. I've never claimed to be a politician. I cannot sit up here and make you all kinds of promises. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, do this. Some people can. I am not one of those. What I can tell you that I will do, for sure, is represent my ward. My ward will get to know who I am, if they don't already. Your concerns, your questions, what you would like to see done in our ward, I will do everything to the best of my ability to get us there. All I can be is your voice, because one of the biggest complaints in my ward is, or our ward, is it doesn't matter because no one listens to only but maybe four families in this town, and my voice doesn't count. Well, let me tell you something. Your voice
Nobody
counts.
listens to us,
Correct.
the people that are
Correct.
live here and work here,
Correct.
pay
That is
taxes.
right. That is one of the biggest complaints going around talking to people in the ward. They want change. And like I said, I'm not gonna sit up here and make you promises, just
I'm
to
not
get
asking
your
for
vote.
promises.
I will tell you I will be your voice. And that's the most I can offer you at this
All
point
I'm
in
asking
time.
for is that people get in there and try.
That's it. Try.
Like Lisa, I am not a politician by any stretch. Those of you who know me know that from my volunteerism at any organization. I'm going to go back to my history on the school board. Even when I was going through all the training, it clearly stated, you cannot make promises for what you are going to do because you are only one person that sits on that council in this case, in that case on the board. I understand that completely, no matter who wins or who doesn't onto the board. The reality is, when you're having those conversations, you have to make sure that you're being respectful and that you're asking the appropriate questions in a public forum. For the most part, our city council meetings are very short, quick. Everybody wants short, quick meetings. We all do. The reason they're short and quick is because one of our responsibilities is to ask questions before those meetings. We should be prepared and have those answers before we go to the meeting. However, and I addressed this with Jeannie regarding the video she just shared about a grant that was given. Information needs to be brought to our constituents. So if there is a topic that I'm supposed to vote on, make all assurances. I will make all assurances. I won't make that vote unless I've talked to a handful of you. And if that means via phone or email or something, that's the approach that I'm going to take. I'm not there to vote the way I want. I'm there to vote the way the constituents in my ward want. And that goes back to why I want to have an even spread. How do all of the constituents in my ward get a hold of one representative when it's much easier in a different ward to get a hold of their representative? So we have to even out that playing field. But back to your concern about how I reach that or be the voice for the people. If the people don't want it, I have no problem saying wait. And I was in a really tough situation when I was in the school board. I was in a situation where information was given out about me that was incorrect, and I felt like I was being attacked at that point. I was the only one on that board with my opinions and thoughts. I didn't stop questioning, but more importantly, what I did is I went to those board members individually. I cleared the air with many of them to the point that I became really, really good friends with them. So it's a process by which you work with people. They may not agree with you, but you might be able to find ways to compromise, and that's what I'm all about. But going back to this will be my last point. When I make those phone calls, one of the questions that was asked of me is, what are you in charge of? And I said, I'm not in charge of anything. I'm there to represent you. That's the way I see it. Now, we may work together on projects, and we may be assigned certain categories in the city to focus on, but when I'm up there on that city council or in any role representing, I'm representing you. I'm not there for me.
And that could and should be changed. Within open meeting laws, there's plenty of room to allow comment on individual agenda items instead of only a brief open call at the beginning of the meeting.
I agree with you. And going back to my experience on the school board, I always went back to the people. If it was something about teachers, I'd say, well, what do you think on that? Right into the audience. We have that ability to ask people what they think, whether it's before a meeting or during a meeting. I will acknowledge that the open meeting laws in the beginning, we don't have the ability to communicate with you. Whatever you ask for, we can't answer you. However, there's no reason why that question cannot be broadcast on the website with the answer so that you know it. There's no reason why, if it's an agenda item, that your question is not answered during that topic. And if whether you were in my ward or not, if you came to the meeting and you asked that question, when it came time for that item on the agenda, I would make sure that you had your answer.
It goes back to where in Ward 1, they're saying, I'm not being heard anyway, I'm not going to waste my time. I'm not allowed to speak, I'm not going to waste my time. What are you going to do for me if you get in there? I will speak for you. I will get all the answers that I can possibly get for you, bring them back to you. Whatever we need to do to make some changes there.
We need a plan to get more low-income, inexpensive housing for young families. That's going to be the start. Because in the zip line, I employ a lot of people that drive here from Benson, Star Vista, Whetstone. I mean, there's not many people live here that can find a place to live here for what they're going to make lower wage.
That'd be all part of the long-term plan. We
Yes.
just need to have a long-term plan.
Right.
I'll go back to what Lisa said early on. We had to have goals. You know, we don't even have a good 5-10 year plan for growth of the city. And that's one of the things I want to initiate. So, you know, like our roads, we continually patch roads. That's all we do. You know, to me, what we need to do is have a budget set up to about every third year completely do a street. Tear up the blacktop, resurface it completely. We patch, and we're patching patches. And you look on 7th Street or 6th Street or 3rd and Survey here, when it rains, we got trenches like this. I mean, there's no permanent fix. So the grader works 5 hours down by me on 6th and 7th there. Every time it rains, there's ruts down there now, 6 inches deep from the rain last night, only 1/3 of an inch. So, but we need to have better plans. We don't plan anything ahead. We just kind of do things one day at a time. We get a grant and then we work around that grant. And we don't even have maybe match money for the grant. So grants are great, we'll get grants, but we gotta have a longer term plan, 5, 10 year, 15 year, and allocate money so we have assets, have a rainy day fund so we got money. When we do a project, we do a water project, tear the street up, we should be able to fix that street then when we get done. Finish the water project, finish the street, make it a good street. If we put down new blacktop, it's good for probably 15, 20 years with minimal maintenance. And most of our streets need maintenance now. There's hardly any of them that are in great shape, if you admit it. And we're patching, it's all we do. So goals, and and that's the goal, to plan for the city to get growth. Plan growth. I mean, we got a hardware store, we need a drugstore. We got all these businesses we had here years ago, we lost them all because of inadequate planning and working. And get the revenue comes from those businesses anyway. The young couple running a hardware store, they came here from Phoenix. I mean, they're a nice addition to our community. They got an 8-year-old daughter. And we're going to get people like that in here if we do some things like Bob says. I mean, I'd like to see some light manufacturing. We had a welding shop here once, and they got chased out because of some zoning problems or whatever. I don't know all the details, but should have still been here. They're in Benson now. They employ quite a few people. So those kind of jobs are good paying jobs. They'll keep our younger people here. And seniors are great. I mean, they come and spend money. I mean, to me, if we got the right area, we could have a nice, like a Del Webb or whatever for seniors. I was in Green Valley for 30 years, and Sarita started out just very, very small, attracting snowbirds, and now look at what that city's got. So it was all planned growth. It was planned. It wasn't just by accident that it happened that way.
We took a step in the right direction when Little Cowpokes opened. Because I know I had my daughter that lived with me that had a toddler. There was no daycare. They opened up right after she left. I was like, oh, wait a minute. So having the actual daycare for the young mothers to be able to put their kids in daycare. But yet here they go commuting out of the community to make their money. So the daycare was in the right step in the right direction, and now we just have to slowly go from there. I just hate to see it go totally explode and then we end up a ghost town. It's got to be slow, but we have to have a plan. There's just no plan in place, and it's sad because there's so much potential here with this town and with this community to really make it rock. We just all have to work together, and I think from an outsider, when I first came here looking in, there was definitely a divide in this town. People were kept divided.
Well, then I'll go ahead and get started here.
Okay.
I will start off by saying that my word means more to me than anything. And I give you my word on two things. One is that I will listen to your concerns and ask you questions before I place a vote. And two is that I will work with whomever's elected for city council and the mayor to still do my number one, which is communicate with you and get your input for what you want on the city council. I have no way of solving every problem. I honestly don't. But I do my due diligence and my research to find the answers. And I want to be able to make things happen. But I will never make you a promise of something I can do if I'm not sure I can do it. And if I don't think it can be done, I will honestly tell you so.
Well, we have concerns. The questions came out. And, you know, that's our reason for being here. I love the city too. I've been coming here a long time. And I love history. I really don't, I didn't do this just, I was retired. So I care enough about the town, and I really mean that. I want the town to grow in a good way and have a better image, maintain our history. And we can do that and still make it a lot better place for all our citizens to live. Just by working together, and the big thing is working together. I agree, there's so much division in this town, I can't believe it. Every little town I've been in, you know, people have got to work together. I've got a lot of that going. I've got about 25 businesses down the zip line that I refer people to, and they refer them to me, and it's working. But they got to realize if we work together, we're all going to make more money. Don't fight each other. I mean, there should be no business here that doesn't want to work with another business. We're all, it's our community, and we got to make the best of it.
I think the last thing I'd like to say is just to encourage other people to get involved, anybody that's watching or anybody that's here. I think it's a shame that if it wasn't for the four of us here, that every candidate would be running unopposed. And I know that's going on in Bisbee right now. And even, I don't think good government or any government really is doing its best if people are unopposed. If somebody's doing a great job and they win, that's great, but if they're unopposed, then it puts out the message that nobody cares. And when you go to a council meeting and nobody's there, it puts out the message that nobody cares. So I'd like to see everybody really get more involved.
It's just long-term planning, goals, bringing the community together, bringing in young families, but giving them the resources to be able to offer them the resources in order to survive here. A lot of younger generation people here are working 2 and 3 jobs and still not even making a living wage. 3 or 4 people living in the same house just trying to make rent and trying to keep the lights on, and it shouldn't be like that. Tourists come in, we can beef up the tourism in the marketing, get more visitors to come here because this town the numbers have died off since even I started coming here 5 years ago. My first time here 20 years ago, I was amazed at all the people. I thought, wow, this is Disneyland. I mean, you know, because it's like, there's the places packed, you couldn't walk. And today, now you walk down the street on a Friday and you may see 40 people. Unless we have a big event. You know, but even some of our big events aren't even happening as far as the numbers. So we need to really work on tourism, the marketing, bringing in the people, the community working together. Code enforcement needs to be looked into. I think that's a great place to start putting pressure on these property owners that just go in and buy a property. I don't know if they think it's going to be worth millions of dollars 10 years from now. I'm telling you, it's going to be a ghost town if they don't all come together. So code enforcement for whoever, if all of us make it, if only a few of us make it, code enforcement, great pressure to put on a property owner and start putting goals in for them. Other than that, I'll do what I can for my ward and for the town and go from there.
May I do a disclaimer?
No.
Sure.
I think I have to, because as you're having this conversation about property owners, I own the Tejas building, which has no floor, it has partial roof, and it has no back wall. And I want to clarify for everyone, my dream is to make it happen, And I just spent all of my hard-earned dollars into remodeling the back of my current store, Lily's Tombstone Memories. And the next phase is the Tejas building, and I promise it won't sit as an abandoned building for too long.
It's been that way now for how many years?
It has, we just purchased it, probably in the last year.
You
And
purchased it this year.
no, it was last
Was it?
year we purchased it. The problem is that it needs hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of work, and I just don't have the funds right now. But it is on the list of